I watched a TED Talk by Ann Rhodes. Basically, Rhodes' TED Talk was about organizational values. During the TED Talk, Rhodes first started off by saying, "Why are certain things important to us?" She actually led with saying that for her, one of the most things that are important to her are organizational values. Um, she, Rhodes then went into an explanation about what exact about the first responsibility that she had. She first actually worked at a bank long ago, and her first responsibility there was to find a teller for the bank. From doing interviews and looking at other applicants, Rhodes decided to actually pick a nice teller. However, as it went on, she realized that more money from the bank Excel was being left, and she also found out from this that the teller was actually wearing a little bit more stuff that was expensive. This basically made Rhodes realize that the teller that she hired was taking money personally from the bank for her own expenses. From doing this, Rhodes actually had to hire the teller. Um, from learning about from basically learning about it, Rhodes said that she realized that she needs to find somebody that has a little bit more than experience. She also would need to find someone who is actually willing to commit to the business. She basically had put this out because just with the teller, or she realized that this teller is not really qualifiable due to the actions that she had put out. When we are, Rhodes pointed out that when we are looking for people, there are at least five things that we want to know. We need to define who they want to be, basically to figure out from knowing an applicant or ourselves who we want to be in life or what exactly do we expect from another employee. Um, Take time to hire people, which means to interview each applicant, but also at the same time, make sure you get to have enough time to figure out who exactly would be perfect for the job. A strong model for equability, which means that it would be someone who is good at performing the job and the task at hand, and is able to sacrifice their time for the company. Um, Another one is understand your people are your brand, which basically means that the people that you hire are in charge of representing the company. One of the big things people are told in jobs nowadays is that you are doing this on behalf of this company. And what you're doing will also become a part of how the company looks for the future, as well as the impact it'll have on the customer. And the other thing is you have a good model, which means that this person not only represents good credibility to help out the company, but also is a good model and example of what your job really needs. Rhodes had also given out an example where 9 people had actually sat in a hotel in New York City. He had talked about a company that wouldn't happen for years to come. Little did we know, that this company that they were talking about would later become known as JetBlue Airlines. Um, Basically, from learning about it, she also pointed out that the importance of leaders. She realized that leaders can drive values, behaviors, culture, and performance. And all four of these things are very essential because we kind of need all those components in order for a business to happen. Without having even one of them can tell that you really won't be able to succeed. Out of those four, though, she pointed out that culture is what people can do without looking. This means that you can actually show to people what the culture can look like. It's just a way of saying that you can show, depending on how you do your job. You can show this is how we do it as a company, but also this is the culture of how um, that something would happen. Another example, going back to the JetBlue Airlines example. Well, a huge example that Rhodes gave out was that a man had missed a flight with JetBlue Airline to go and see his family because he found out his grandson died. Apparently, he realized he missed the flight, and that was when, before takeoff, the captain actually brought him in and told him he could go for a ride, only that he would be driving with him in the cockpit. Basically, during this moment, Rhodes had revealed that the captain of the plane was actually doing the golden standard, where basically they are meeting the expectations that they wanted to. It made me realize in that moment how much people and businesses are trying to make their goals happen. And they always are trying to go for the golden standard or just trying to go for the right thing for anybody, no matter what the circumstance might be. We also had to learn, another thing was that we all get to learn from techniques. A big example of Rhodes had give out was that techniques that dated back all the way until back when World War II happened, which is about over 8 decades ago. Oh, and basically, yeah, a big reason that techniques were mostly happened then was for target practice. As most of us are really, as most of us do know, well, soldiers who had to go out into the war had to practice using their weapons and when they go on the battlefield because that is their only real protection that they have in order to defend themselves. Also, they kind of basically said that this kind of technique helped many other generations learn techniques for other stuff. This could be anything from doing simple tasks to stuff related to a job. Rhodes also brought up that behavioral hire is used also in organizations. It just means, and that means, depending on how you handle a situation, can usually depend on how you get a job. An example would have to be if you do this job like effectively or with a good attitude, or at least a decent one, then you could be applicable and be qualified for a job. Of course, if you do it where you don't really care or don't really know a whole lot, there's a strong chance that you may not be able to get the job at all. A huge example, uh, actually, some good organizations also reward people to make them feel better. This kind of understands the whole reward system where if somebody does something good, they can be rewarded. A huge example of this Rhodes had brought up was with Google. She brought up that since many people who work for Google are young and don't really have families, they decided to do a little bit twist. I'm sure everybody's heard of Bring Your Kids to Work Day, but for them, since most of the people at Google didn't really have families yet, they decided to do something that they call Bring Your Parents to Work Day, where the employees' parents actually got a full experience to see what they did at Google. That example showed me that Google can that companies are willing to make pretty huge changes as well as huge opportunities for other people no matter what the difference is between ages. Basically, Rhodes went back to the question at the beginning: why are we loyal to brands? Because those people who help out usually serve those brands, which is why you say you're working for like a good company, you would want to stay loyal to them by still helping them or even getting products from them. And basically, Rhodes left off with what are the real values of your organization. To be honest, with real values to organizations, I feel like it all depends on exactly what mission statement and what kind of goal that they would have for themselves. I know that many businesses out there are different, which means that they can also have different values as well as plans. But I think overall, businesses can actually succeed with whatever they're doing as long as they stay true to whatever word that they promise to the people who support their product.